Usually when we want to understand a company's grand strategy, we read their annual report.
Right.
Like we look at their mission statement.
Yeah, or watch some flashy keynote presentation.
Exactly. And it's all very polished, very deliberate, and, well, usually very long.
Right, it's the public face. I mean, the narrative they want you to see, meticulously dressed up in hundreds of pages of corporate speak and PR spin.
But what if you could just, bypass all that? What if instead of listening to the marketing pitch, you could just sneak into the theater before the show starts and read the stage director's lighting cues?
That is a great analogy.
Thanks. Because today, for you listening, we're doing exactly that. We have this piece of source material that is incredibly unique for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We aren't looking at a white paper or a book. We're looking at raw code, specifically a CSS style sheet for a brand called EON.
Which provides this genuinely unfiltered look at their strategy, because CSS, or cascading style sheets, is the hidden styling blueprint of a web page.
Right. It dictates everything.
Exactly. Every color, every margin, every font size. It is the invisible hand guiding your eyes.
And our mission today is basically to play digital detectives.
Yeah.
By reverse engineering this really short, highly efficient block of code, we're going to uncover EON's entire business philosophy.
Their marketing narrative, their psychological strategy, all of it.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating here is the sheer efficiency. I mean, the overarching focus of this code is just keep it short. We're looking at how a massive corporate narrative is communicated through minimal text, hex codes, and opacity levels.
It's incredible.
So let's unpack this. How does a bunch of text colors and margins actually tell a compelling business story?
Well, it does it by engineering your perception before your brain even has the chance to consciously read a single word.
Wow, okay.
Right? Like every good pitch starts with a hook. And if we look at the very top of the CSS file, the first line of code literally dictates the user's first impression. It defines a class called TopStripe.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the parameters for that right now. It's a tiny element, just 6 pixels high, sitting at the absolute top edge of the screen.
Barely noticeable.
Yeah, and the code applies a linear gradient to it. It moves from gold at 0% to cyan at 40% to green at 100%, but it's so thin, I feel like a user might not even consciously register that it's there. Why even bother putting it in the code?
Because subconsciously, that 6-pixel line is establishing a visual timeline.
A timeline, how so?
Well, in Western cultures, we read left to right. By placing gold on the left, moving into cyan in the middle, and ending with green on the right, the code is planting a seed of progression.
Oh, I see.
It's a color-coded map of a journey you haven't even started yet. And then the code immediately moves into what it calls the hero section, the massive banner at the top.
Which they've titled in their code comments the declaration.
Yes, and the declaration is not whispering.
No, definitely not. It sets the main headline using a font called Be Best New, and it uses a CSS clamp function to make the text scale up to a massive 118 pixels.
Which is physically huge on a screen.
Huge. It's bold, capitalized, and specific words are highlighted in that exact same gold and cyan from the top stripe. And sitting right next to this aggressive declaration is something the code calls window box.
Right. The window. This is where the psychological framing really kicks into gear.
Okay, so this window box has a little badge that says the window in bold gold letters. Inside it, the code builds a grid with 3 distinct phases.
Breaking down time, essentially?
Yeah, the classes are literally named WG phase ago, WG phase now, and WG phase next. Past, present, and future.
Now think about this. If this were just a standard, unstyled text document, all 3 of those concepts would carry equal visual weight. Your brain would just process them as equal options.
Right, just 3 words on a page.
Exactly. But this code is enforcing a strict hierarchy. It is deciding for you which phase of time actually matters.
And I see exactly how it's doing that. Looking at the properties for the now phase, the text is bright, vibrant gold. But for the ago and next phases, the code drops the text color to this faded, washed-out transparency.
Down to 30% opacity, to be exact.
Yeah, 30%.
Yeah.
It really is like looking at the blueprints of a theater stage. Like, keep the spotlight blindingly bright on center stage and throw the wings into total darkness.
That's exactly what it is.
But let me push back on this for a second. Are we maybe reading too much into a simple design choice?
How do you mean?
Well, a designer might just think that faded text looks sleek or modern. Are you saying they're actively using CSS to engineer a sense of urgency?
I am saying exactly that. I mean, in cognitive psychology, there's this concept called the scarcity principle.
Right, where things seem more valuable if they're rare.
Exactly. When something is perceived as scarce or fleeting, our brains assign it a higher value. We feel an urgent need to acquire it or act on it. The window of opportunity is, by definition, brief.
So by aggressively dimming the past and the future,
They are leveraging color theory and evolutionary biology. Our visual cortex prioritizes high contrast, bright objects. The code forces your eyes entirely onto the present moment, the now. They are communicating, without using a single sentence of persuasion, that the past is entirely irrelevant and the future is deeply uncertain. Only the present action matters.
it creates a subconscious anxiety.
Yeah.
You have to act while the window is bright and open.
Yes. It's brilliant.
So instead of writing, a 3-paragraph essay on why timing in the market is critical, they just set a text opacity to 30%. That totally fits the keep it short focus.
Completely. Your brain feels the urgency of a closing window before you even read the paragraph explaining what the window actually is.
Yeah.
It circumvents your rational brain completely.
Wow. By the time your logical faculties start reading, your emotional state is already set to urgent.
Precisely.
Okay, so if I'm a user, you just made me panic a little bit about this closing window. My natural instinct is to ask, well, what do I do about it?
Right. How do I take advantage of this?
Yeah, so how does the code answer that question?
It transitions immediately into the mechanism. Because once urgency is established, you have to provide a structured path forward. Otherwise, the user just feels overwhelmed and leaves.
That makes sense.
This is where the code shifts from the initial emotional pitch into the structural substance of their business model.
Okay, following the CSS down, we hit a section commented as the truth, which sets up a grid using those core colors again. But then we hit the main engine.
The section called the journey.
Right. This is where EON maps out its entire methodology, and they keep it brutally concise, just 3 distinct steps. The CSS classes are labeled JS Find, JS Build, and JS Sell.
Find, build, sell. It is a very classic, straightforward entrepreneurial pipeline.
Yeah.
But the magic isn't in the words. It's in how the code is styling those 3 steps to build trust.
I'm looking at the JS class, which stands for Journey Step, and each one has a top border that's 4 pixels thick. The Find step gets a gold border.
The build step gets a cyan border.
And the Sell step gets a green border. Gold, cyan, green. Wait, that's the exact same color progression from that tiny 6-pixel gradient stripe at the very top edge of the page.
Bingo. This is a masterclass in cognitive systemization. They are using CSS variables to create a subconscious visual language for the user.
To plant that seed of progression.
Yes. This is where that seed pays off.
So they mapped the colors directly to the business model. Gold is the spark, the initial discovery. That's fine.
Cyan is the structure, the actual work and creation. Build.
And green, which is universally associated with money and forward progression, is the profit. Sell.
Exactly. You see, human brains are pattern recognition machines. We are constantly looking for rules and systems to make sense of the world.
Right.
Because if I'm a user, I've already been exposed to the gold, cyan, green sequence at the very beginning of my session. My visual memory logged it.
Even if you didn't consciously realize it.
Right. So when I finally scroll down to the journey section and see those same 3 colors applied to a business methodology, my brain experiences a tiny hit of dopamine.
Because it recognizes the pattern. It feels like solving a puzzle you didn't even know you were playing.
Exactly. And more importantly, it drastically lowers cognitive friction. You don't have to work hard to understand their business model.
Nor do you feel the need to question it, because the color theory has already validated it in your subconscious. It just feels internally consistent.
It feels inevitable.
I want to look at how they style the numbers for these steps, because this is wild. There is a JS Num class for the numbers 1, 2, and 3. The code sets the font family back to that giant Bebas new font we saw in the declaration.
Huge letters.
Yeah, the font size is a whopping 72 pixels, so these numbers are absolutely massive on the screen. But the opacity is set to 0.15, 15%.
Barely there.
Right, they're huge, but almost entirely transparent, basically acting like a watermark in the background of the box. I'm struggling with this one. Why make an element so massive if you're intentionally going to make it barely visible?
It has to do with balancing structural weight against visual distraction. If a massive 72 pixel number was fully opaque, it would just scream at you.
Right. It would completely overpower the actual content of the stat.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
verbs and the product tags they actually want you to read would get lost.
It would just look like a giant Sesame Street flashcard.
Yeah, pretty much. But by dropping the opacity to 15%, it transforms from a piece of active content into an anchor.
Oh, I see.
It provides massive structural weight to the page. It silently communicates. This is a rigid, proven, step-by-step system. You feel the weight and the finality of the numbers 1, 2, and 3 without being distracted by them.
It's whispering loudly.
Exactly.
And again, each of these steps has a tiny little badge, the JS Prod class, which is only 10 pixels high, heavily letter-spaced and color-coded to match. Find, build, sell. Gold, cyan, green. The repetition is highly controlled.
It's all about reinforcing that pattern.
But let's think about the user's journey here. Okay, you've made me feel the urgency of the window. You've taught me your system, find, build, sell, and used color patterns to make me trust it.
Okay.
If I'm a smart investor or a potential customer, my very next mental roadblock is going to be, why shouldn't I just take this exact 3-step system and go buy it from someone else? Or just do it myself?
Right. Trust isn't enough to make a purchase.
Right. How does the code address the competition?
It anticipates that exact objection immediately following the journey. The very next section in the style sheet is labeled in the comments as the marketplace moat.
A moat, like
Yeah.
the defensive water around a castle.
Yes. And the mechanism they use to establish this moat is honestly one of the most manipulative pieces of design psychology on the entire page.
Okay, here's how the code structures it. It creates a grid called market split. It splits the screen directly in half. The left side is a class called MSL, and the right side is a class called MSL.
So a classic A-B comparison.
Right. The old way versus the new way. Us versus them. But look at how the CSS mathematically enforces the winner of that comparison.
Go on.
The right side, MSR, gets a solid 4-pixel green border on top and a subtle green background tint. Inside this right side, there's a class for the bullet points called M's item good.
Good. Explicitly called good in the code.
Exactly. If a bullet point has the good class, the code makes the text a bright 82% white opacity. It bumps up the font weight so it's bolder, and it injects a bright green dot right next to the text.
Now contrast that with the left side. What happens to the MSL class?
The left side gets no border. It gets no green tint. The headers in the text are dropped down to a weak 40% opacity. It looks faded, frail, and there are no bright green dots.
It's visually starved.
Yeah. But let me stop you right here because I have a hard time believing users are this gullible.
Why?
Well, when a user looks at a side-by-side comparison on a website, they are reading the actual text, right? They are evaluating the pros and cons logically. Are we really giving the CSS too much credit here?
Not at all.
Surely a smart user isn't just being tricked into buying something because of a 4-pixel green line and a bright green dot.
You are assuming that users browse the internet using System 2 thinking.
System 2, like the slow, analytical, rational part of the brain.
Exactly, but the reality is almost all web browsing is governed by System 1 thinking. That's the fast, automatic, highly emotional part of the brain that relies on heuristics and visual cues to make split-second judgments.
So you're saying the visual design actually overpowers the written argument?
Entirely. I mean, the concept of digital authority can be completely fabricated through visual weight alone.
Wow.
The good right side is specifically designed to visually overwhelm the weak side. Bright text, bold fonts, reassuring green check marks, they all trigger positive cognitive associations. They signal health, correctness, safety.
And the left side?
The left side is designed to look unappealing, tired, and irrelevant, purely by dropping its opacity to 40%. The design exhausts your System 2 analytical brain before you even start reading.
So you don't need to logically evaluate the arguments because your System 1 brain instantly processed the right side as the winning team.
Exactly. Keep it short, right?
Wow. So the brevity of the design, just contrasting colors and font weights, is communicating market dominance faster and more effectively than a 1,000-word essay detailing their competitive advantages.
Precisely. And to put a punctuation mark on that dominance, look at the element they place inside that winning right side.
Let's see. Right, there's a class called MoatStat. It's styled with a dedicated green background box, and the statistic itself, the statting class, is a huge 36-pixel, ultra-bold, bright green number.
Visually heavy.
Incredibly heavy.
And making that statistic a massive 36-pixel bold green font isn't just about making it visible. It's the visual equivalent of a financial auditor's stamp of approval on a tax return.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
It bypasses the user's natural skepticism because our brains associate that kind of visual density and high contrast with immovable, objective facts.
So it doesn't even matter what the number represents. The way it is styled makes it feel undeniable.
Exactly. And once that argument is won, the code moves the user right into the qualification phase. The who-sec, or WHO, this is for section.
Which, keeping with this theme of using strict structure to keep it short and replace long-winded explanations, doesn't use a long list. It splits the audience into 3 neat, color-coded categories.
For categorization.
Yeah, WCW1 gets a gold border, WCW2 gets a cyan border, and WCW3 gets an orange border. The entire page basically operates on these incredibly tight, visually contained grids.
Everything has its place.
Yeah.
Everything is categorized. This projects absolute control.
Right.
From a psychological standpoint, if a company's website feels this meticulously organized, the user subconsciously assumes the company's product, their customer service, and their leadership are equally organized and reliable.
Which brings us to the very end of the psychological funnel. The outro of the page, labeled in the code as the closing declaration.
The big finish.
The closing section brings back a subtle radial gradient, creating another soft spotlight effect, but this time shining up from the bottom of the screen.
Nice.
The headlines use that massive Bevis Nole font again, clamping up to 72 pixels and bringing back the specific gold and cyan highlights from the very beginning.
It's a design technique called bookending.
Bookending.
Yeah. You start the user's journey with a massive, bold declaration. You take them on a structured, color-coded journey, and you end with a mirror image of that initial massive declaration.
I get it. It provides the brain with a sense of psychological closure. The loop has been closed.
Exactly.
And finally, the moment of truth, the octoblock, the call to action. The label for it is tiny, just 10 pixels, heavily spaced out. But the B to URL, the actual link to buy or sign up, is massive.
22 pixels.
Yeah, 22 pixels and bright gold. And the button itself, the P2BTN, is a solid block of gold with dark navy text. It's intentionally designed to be the most visually distinct, heavy, and clickable element in the entire bottom section. Following that, there is an elegant little signature class, EON Sig, and the source bar, sitting at the absolute bottom.
That signature class is a crucial final touch. After taking the user through a highly systematized, color-coded, heavily structured machine of a web page, adding a small, bespoke signature injects a sudden element of humanity.
Right, it softens the hard edges.
Exactly. It essentially says, hey, there are real humans behind this system, and we personally stand behind it. It softens the machine right before you hand over your money.
So stepping back from the code and looking at the entire architecture, well, this has been an absolute masterclass in digital persuasion.
Truly.
By relying on an incredibly efficient CSS file, EON didn't just build a pretty web page. What usually takes an hour-long corporate keynote or a 50-page white paper was executed in just a few hundred lines of code.
They engineered a psychological funnel.
They totally mapped the human mind. They used the window section and 30% opacity tricks to trigger the scarcity principle.
Creating an urgent sense of the present moment.
Yeah, and they used the find, build, sell journey, mapped to gold, cyan, and green, to create a cognitive heuristic that feels inevitable.
Easy for the brain to understand.
And they use the marketplace moat to completely fabricate digital authority and visually dominate competitors simply by manipulating font weights, dropping the left side to 40% opacity, and giving their own stats the visual weight of an auditor's stamp.
It is genuinely incredible how much complex business strategy is hidden in a document that is mostly just margins, padding, and hex codes.
It fundamentally changes how you view the web. Design isn't just about making things look aesthetically pleasing.
No, it is about structuring thought. The code is the invisible architecture of persuasion.
Which brings us back to where we started. Usually you look at a finished building and admire the paint or the shape of the windows. But today, we looked at the structural blueprints.
We saw exactly where the load-bearing walls of the argument were placed.
Right, and how the lighting was rigged to force your attention, which leaves you, listening right now, with a really fascinating question to ponder. When you look at a website, you think you are in control. You think you're using your System 2 brain, making rational decisions based on the text you're reading and the logic of the arguments presented.
But what if the real persuasion is happening invisibly in the CSS?
Exactly. What if it's the 4-pixel margins, the carefully mapped color variables, and the specific opacity levels that are dictating exactly where your eyes go, how anxious you feel, and who you decide to trust?
It's a wild thought.
As you browse the internet today, clicking through your usual sites and making decisions, I want you to ask yourself, how much of your behavior and how much of your agreement is being secretly guided by a few short lines of code?
It makes you look at every screen, every comparison chart, and every brightly colored button a little differently, doesn't it?
It really does. You will certainly never ignore a faded font or a drop shadow again. That is our deep dive for today. Keep your eyes open, and we'll catch you next time.